Hey class, good morning. Today's November 5th and we're going to be working. Thought I would just record a quick video for you on how to make these grids. So I'm going to walk through the steps that are in the slides and some of the pieces so that some of you guys that are a little bit behind can kind of like understand the steps and the process and what we've done so far. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so let's take a look back at where we're at real quick. So ma305. So let's just take a quick peek at what we've been doing recently. So on October 27th, we did some merging of data frames. So we've been doing, in chapter 6, we did linear regression and multilinear regression with the Boston sales data. And then we pulled in some data files from this Volusia County sales data set, right? So I had you download with curl, right? So we use this curl command, and you can Google curl for if you weren't in class or don't. Curl's just a program that allows you to download files. It's kind of like FTP, but it just downloads a file and handles file transmission. So we curled this file, salesdata.zip, and then I gave you if you wanted to chain commands together, I gave you this PowerShell command that can unzip that sales file. And then we did the same thing with the Volusia County GIS data. Okay, so now we have two sets of files that the sales data that what's sold in the county at certain points in time, and then the GIS data says where are they within the county. So like, what is GIS? And here's a geographic information system. And if I turn on the parcels for the whole entire county, right, this is every parcel in the county. Here's ones that are broken up by a zip code. And then we can also do like a sales analysis and color code. Let's see here. Right, so maybe I color code the sales based on how recent they were, or that they're the same thing. Okay. So, and this is a little bit different analysis. I'm showing which have sold recently in the cluster. Now, that's great to have all these points to see where they are, but then you want to do some kind of clustering to see where are they occurring and at what frequency and at what value. So we downloaded the GIS data and merged it with the sales data file. So I gave you the command to curl, and then what you do is basically open up your DOS prompt, get into the folder that you want to pull the data file from, and then you execute the command curl in whatever file you're downloading, and it downloads the file into that local directory. So in this particular case, I'm just verifying that everything works. I've got this c:temp ma305 verify folder here, and I downloaded the different files for this exercise, for this homework. So I did plot the polygons, download the zip code map. So I exported this zip code layer. This is a GIS software. It's not the intent of showing you all this, but if I right click here and do export, I can export this data as an image or a shaped file or what have you. So it allows me to export information. And then I also downloaded you the dictionary for the zip codes and their associated parcel numbers. And I also pickled the polygons. So different curl commands to download these data sets that we need. So the first data set, so assuming you're back here on October 27th, right? So we downloaded, we use this curl command to download these files. And then once we have that file stored on our machine, we locate exactly where that file is. So you need to know, okay, there should be a file here. Sales data is stored in c:temp ma305. So if I go to my DOS prompt, I can do cd ... moves me up a directory, right? Let's start a DOS prompt, right? If I type in command, I get the DOS prompt, or you could use your Anaconda prompt, right? So we do cd/ cd to to my temp folder, cd to ma305. And if I do a dir on star.saved files, I've got pickled dictionary, pickled zip polygons, sales data.save. And there's that sales data, right? So here's the sales data. So then I know that file exists on my hard drive. I should have done some error checking in this code, which we've done prior. I just didn't do it here. And now I'm going to do a pickle, read that file name, and store it as a data frame. So with just a few lines of code here, right, let's open up a brand new thing here and come over here and make sure, there's nothing up my sleeve. Right, so everything's clear. So we import Pandas, we got the matplotlib, and we're going to just run these commands here. So we got import Pandas, matplotlib, you've seen that. The file name is that the sales data.save. And then I'm going to use data frame, read that pickle file, and generate me a new data frame. So this is the code that I want to run. I hit F9, and it ran those codes. And it literally unpickled that file and made me my data frame. So it's a great way of distributing data, to clients or, to whatever. And again, hopefully you've gone through and done some of these homeworks, but we've got the land use code. So land use code 100 is single family residential, which means it has a house on it. 000 is vacant land, so there's not going to be any building, hence this no building value is a NaN. You got residential and all different types, right? And we can come down here into the data frame and ask for the unique land use descriptions, right? So we can say data frame dot, not dot, we could use dot, land use description, and we want the unique, list of the unique ones, right? So here's the list of the unique list of land use codes, and there's a bunch of them. So typically what you're probably thinking about when you see a sales data, you're probably thinking about single family homes or mobile homes, or you can look at this whole list, but you might want to filter out some of the data that, count the number of records that are not land use code 0100 and get rid of them, right? You might not want to put a bowling alley in with, or other miscellaneous things that are in there. All right, and then we did the correlation. We've done this before with we generate the correlation matrix, and that allows me to correlate the different values to sales price. So the appraised total, we've done this before, but the total value that's appraised, that's from the county. That's what they build your taxes on. They appraise your value, and it should be pretty close to the sales price, highly correlated. And they do it off of sales prices. So whatever sells, they generate values, and then they build some heuristics to establish the appraised total value of that property. And it's usually about 80% of the sales price, which is why it's saying 90%, right? Take the reciprocal of that. The reciprocal of 80% is like 1.25 or 1.2. Okay, so we got the data in, right? Then the next thing we're gonna wanna do is grab the sales data, grab the GIS data, right? So we curl the file down again, same way, grab that GIS location, merge the data set, and let's just stay within our means here, right? So we're going to grab this data set, the next part of this code, which I'm asking you to go through and run this stuff step by step. Save, let's just call this homework help November grid, right? So now I'm going to run that piece of code. So I downloaded the GIS data frame with the curl. It was already on my machine. I didn't show you that step. but we could do that. And then we did the read data frame. This time I'm reading a comma separated value data set and generating a data frame off of it. So just two different ways of building a data frame. One way was from a pickled object, and the other one was from this, this text file from the CSV. And you were able to download that, I'm sure. Let's just make sure there. The GIS data set, GIS location. Okay, so yeah, so you curled, downloaded that GIS data file, right? So if we went down here to our DOS prompt, I'm not gonna run it here because I just don't wanna eclipse something that already works. I'm gonna go to that verify folder, right? And I'm gonna pull down that data set. So it's pulling down the GIS data. And then you could use that PowerShell command that I think I gave you up here to decompress that file. And now you could look at that Volusia Notepad Plus, Volusia GIS data. Oh, I'm in a different environment here. I don't have ma305 verify Notepad GIS data. Notepad Volusia GIS data. Okay. So it's basically a parcel identification number of the GIS X center point and the GIS Y center point of that parcel. So we come back to the GIS data set and looked at every parcel in the county, right? And if I wanted to look at parcel, I don't know, this one right here, the first one, I can do something like, I think it's F3, function F3, parcels, function F3. Okay, so I'm gonna search for that parcel. I'm gonna select the feature. No match, because it's not that one. It's actually called the alt key in this system. All right, so now it found one, and I'm gonna zoom to that feature. And that's an oddball looking feature, but whatever. And then if I hover over the center point of it, down here under coordinate, you see 489,877. So as I get to the middle of that centroid, I get 490,000 for the X. Yep, and there's 490,000, then 1.83 million in the Y, and 1.827, 1.83 million in the Y. So that's the center point. And I also convert it to lon lat for you as well. Okay, so now you got this Volusia GIS data. And again, this is all the stuff on 1027 that I want you to do first. Now that we've got it, we merge the two data sets together. We join the two based on a left join, and we've already done this in class. And then we start to build the matrix. So we start to build the XY grid, and we plot all this. And I'm going a little bit further back than I wanted to, so I'm gonna speed up just a tiny bit. You can read that stuff. But this is the first step in the homework that I'm asking you to do, is make this plot. So I wanna make sure you can do this. If you can't do this, that's okay, but this, at least you know where you're at. So the last thing I did was data frame left. Data frame left. Now we're gonna build the matrix, and then we're gonna plot it, right? So Control C. It's not actually building the matrix. Let's just sit here. So now let's save the rest of that and run the code. Okay. And now, so we grabbed it, we merged these data frames. We use this xbin command to, and this is a little bit in the notes. So if we go to today's announcement, you go to today's announcement, and then here's this plotting grid. This is what I'm asking you to do for homework. So first thing I'm asking you to do is do what I'm doing right now. Go over to the 1027, run each step, download the data sets, make sure you put it in the right files, execute the code, and generate that plot, which is what we just did. Okay, so this is the first part of the homework. All right, and then we used curl, did this, we built grid lines, take a screenshot. Now the next thing we want to do is modify the code to color code those dots, not just where they are, but let's put a color coding associated with them. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is modify that code and then put this color coded plot. All right, and much better, right? Okay, so some notes here. I really don't want to read each of those things through it, right? Each one, read over this and hit pause and then pick back up. So these are the miscellaneous notes. And the modifications that I'm going to make to this piece of code is I'm changing it from a plot to a scatter plot. All right, so I'm going to change that code from just a plot to a scatter plot, and I really want to just use code that I've already written if I've got it. If not, I can retype it in real quick. I'm asking you to retype it in because you're the one who needs to learn this. So I'm going to open up another file. It might be called plot2. Right, so I'm asking you to now change. So you got to add these 2 lines of code here. So I'm telling you, it was plot, and now we're going to add these 2 lines of code here, this import, this transform, and then we're going to do a scatter plot versus a normal plot. And before we just plotted them in blue, but now we're going to color code based off of the sales data price. Okay, got to find my plot command here. Right, I'm going to get rid of that, and now I'm going to just, right, I'm going to plot it. I use this, I need this transforms. There's another function that allows me to build a bounding box and force this stuff to be within this bounding box. I'm going to clipping bounding box so that I force the extents to be the GIS extents of the county. And we have talked about this a few times before. Okay, so then I've got my scatter plot, I'm going to plot, and then the other thing I need to do is I'm going to put a color bar on here. So normally we don't assign the plot equal to something, but here I want to hold an axis. So this up here, we got figure axis subplot. We need that piece of code in there as well. So before I call my first plot, I need to modify the code to say figure comma axis. And this came out of chapter 12. So you're going to see me reference the code from chapter 12 again. Plot dot subplot one, plot dot subplots one, and that should say figure. And I'm running a little out of time. So we got this figure plot, and then we're going to set the size of this thing to the proper set size. I'm going to steal some code, so I don't have to sit here and type it and try to remember the exact syntax. So we're going to set the plot figure. It's not done in that code. Split point plot polygons will work. Well, I guess it would have been easier for me to type it. Okay, so there, grab that code, figure set. So I create a figure, right? In the code here, I'm asking you to modify, right? So add this code on 46 and 47 and 50 and 51. We had just line 54, we did a plot. And then we're going to add this transparency and that color bar. So down at the bottom, right before we do this, right, we're going to do plot dot axis equal. That way there we get a square plot. And let's save this and run this for a moment and see what we got. Right, so now right now we changed the figure size to be 10 by 10. And now we want to add that color bar to this. So the command to add that color bar is plot the color bar, plot dot color bar, And then it's SC was the name of that file handle that we're going to tie to. So SC axis equals axis. SC was the return of the scatter plot. So now it's going to tie those colors to this color bar. And then that fraction, padding, and alpha is going to deal with making that scale bar the right size. I'm going to let you play with that in your version of the code. But for right now, I'm going to just add that color bar. And boom, there's the color bar. And now we've got the plot associated with changing the sales price for each parcel based on that color map. Okay, so that takes you through part 1 and part 2 of the homework. So part 1 was read this stuff. Part 2 is color code the points based on the value. Now we're going to generate a grid. So the next thing we're going to do is in each one of these, I've already made this like grid, but all I did was plot lines on the table here. So I've only done up here, right? I plot these grid cell lines, which were from my X bins, which basically I took X bins is here. And I went from the lower left coordinate of the county to the, I'm sorry, this is X. So we're going in the X direction. So this is X to X. So lower left X to upper right X. That's just X values. So I went from 438 and I used these X bins to the upper right X and I spread it into 10 discrete values. I want 10 linearly spaced values, including both sides of it. So I got the 438 on one end, I got the 743,000 on the other, and then I've got linearly spaced elements within. 10 total from the start to the end, 10 total. So we got 10 total value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Same thing with the Y, except for the Y we had ordered from the top of the county, from the upper right Y to the lower left. That puts my rows in a top of the page downward orientation. And that was just an orientation that I used because when I label these in a minute, I want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the cell index. Okay, so that's the idea here. So let's look at what I'm asking you to do. So you did the code modification. This is part 2. Okay, so that's the end of part 2, was that code modification. Now into part 3, we want to put a number inside each one of these grid elements and then put their plot over on there. And then we want to be able to cluster our information and say, okay, well, up here in number 6, in cell 6, we want to color code that based on the average sale price that occurred in that grid number 6. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop this video right here just so I can get it recorded and put out there for class time. And then I'm going to record a second one for doing this part. Okay, so this should get you through part 1 and part 2. And then by the time you get to there, I should have another video posted. Okay, so talk to you in a bit. And if you got questions, email, holler, ask for help. Don't holler. Just drop me an email, say, hey, I need help with this, or jump on the Zoom or what have you. Come to class. Okay, thank you.